An article on electric vehicles stated that in 200,000 miles of driving, which this would be the typical lifespan of a car, a typical internal combustion engine vehicle, ICE, would emit 66 tons of greenhouse gases. So a normal car or a gas car is called an internal combustion engine, or ICE. And this is the emissions of that car over its lifetime, according to that article. And here I'm asking you to use 27 miles per gallon as a typical fuel efficiency. Calculate the lifetime emissions for such a vehicle. It might feel like we don't have enough information here to work on that, but I'd like you to start with 200,000 miles and then use 27 miles per gallon after that. And let's see where that puts us. So here's my start, 200,000 miles over 1, 27 miles per gallon. Hopefully by now you realize that this needs to be flipped. So let's put 27 miles on the bottom here and 1 gallon on top. Okay, that means that miles are going to cancel. Now we have gallons, and we are trying to end up with metric tons at the end of the whole process. So we have a couple more facts to insert here. I'm going to multiply by the fact that we used a bunch of times, which is 8,700 grams per 1 gallon. And then one more fact, I don't know if you can guess it, maybe. This would end up with grams, and we want to turn 1,000,000 grams into 1 metric ton. So that, once we cancel, we will end up with metric tons for this particular car. This article didn't specify the miles per gallon, so I was like, oh, let me use 27 and confirm their math. So it always makes me feel good to confirm other people's math. And so when I work that problem out, I get 64.44 metric tons. Pretty close to what the article stated. The article states that the footprint for manufacturing an electric car is greater than for a gas car. You may have heard people talking about how an electric car requires lithium for the batteries, and it's environmentally destructive to mine for lithium. So there's a carbon footprint associated with making an electric car, and you might say, oh, electric cars are also bad as a result. So in this graph here, I have the electric car in pink and the gas car in red. And notice that the electric car starts out with a higher carbon footprint than a gas car. So it's more environmentally destructive to make an electric car compared to a gas car. But over the lifetime of the car, the gas car is going to end up having more emissions. And over the lifetime, the electric car is going to have lower emissions. What I like about this example is that this is 2 linear models. And we learned about linear models, and we've seen intersecting lines before, and now we're using this to compare a gas and an electric car. And these are fairly realistic numbers. So when somebody argues that an electric car is worse, you could say, yes, it's worse at the beginning, but over the lifespan of the vehicle, an electric car ends up being better because it emits so much less. So the emissions to produce the electric car looks like it's around 10 metric tons. And the gas car looks like it might be 6 or 7 metric tons to produce it. And then the gas car has higher emissions starting at 25,000 miles. By the end of the story, you can see that we're over here at 65 or 66 metric tons, which is what we calculated for the gas car. And for the electric car, it's only at 40. You might be wondering why the electric car has emissions at all. Well, electric cars use electricity, and not all electricity is clean. In the Pacific Northwest, our electricity comes from hydroelectric power, which is fairly clean and doesn't emit CO2. If you're on the East Coast and your energy comes from a coal-burning power plant, then electricity isn't necessarily very clean. But it is still cleaner to drive an electric car than a gas car, even if your gas or your electricity is coming from a coal power plant. So you can see that digging into these environmental impacts quickly turns into really complicated knowledge about utilities and about science and all sorts of things that maybe you haven't really thought about. I'm not trying to overwhelm you or depress you, but I like giving my students information to be aware of our impacts on our planet.